Barron Trump is perhaps the most mysterious member of America's most talked about family. While his siblings have lived under constant cameras and headlines, Barron has always been carefully shielded, existing almost like a shadow in the background. Born into towering wealth inside the golden skyscrapers of Manhattan, he later moved into the most famous residence in the world, the White House. Yet despite this extraordinary journey, little is truly known about his life. What was it really like to grow up as the youngest heir of such a controversial dynasty? Was he simply a quiet observer, or is he being prepared for something far greater? Each rare glimpse of Barron only deepens the curiosity. Stay with us until the end to uncover why his childhood is unlike any other in American history. Before we dive into this captivating story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. That way you won't miss any of our exclusive stories about power, wealth, and the hidden truths behind the world's most talked about figures. Barron William Trump entered the world in March 2006, not just as the youngest son of Donald Trump, but as the only child of Donald and Melania Trump together. His very birth carried symbolic weight. He was the living bridge between the Trump dynasty's immense wealth and its growing political power. Unlike his half-siblings, Donald Jr., Ivanka, and Eric, who had been born decades earlier and raised before their father was a political figure, Barron came into a world where the Trump name was already both an empire and a headline. From his earliest days, Barron's life was surrounded by opulence. His nursery in Trump Tower was said to be decorated with an elegance that matched the golden skyscraper itself, a space more like a palace chamber than a child's room. Every detail of his upbringing reflected privilege. Private tutors, rare toys, a world where luxury was the baseline rather than the exception. While most children played in backyards, Barron's playground was the penthouse of one of New York's most iconic buildings. Yet there was a striking contrast in his childhood compared to his older siblings. Ivanka, Don Jr., and Eric had been raised in the glare of tabloids during Donald Trump's years as a high-profile businessman, but Barron was born into a far more intense spotlight, one where the media's fascination was not only with his father's wealth, but also with his growing political ambitions. From the moment he was born, Barron was not just a child, but a symbol. Every appearance, every photograph, every whispered detail about him seemed to hint at something larger, the continuation of a family legacy already shaping America's cultural and political landscape. Barron's arrival marked the beginning of a new chapter for the Trumps. He was not only heir to golden towers and family fortune, but also to the uncharted path of politics that his father had set in motion. In that sense, his birth was both personal and historic, ushering in a child who, while just a boy, carried the weight of dynasty on his shoulders. Barron Trump's earliest years unfolded inside one of the most famous skyscrapers in the world, Trump Tower. His childhood home was not a suburban house with a white picket fence, but a sprawling penthouse that stretched across 3 floors, glittering with gold accents, marble columns, and crystal chandeliers. It was a space designed to impress the world, a palace in the sky above Manhattan, and it was the place where Barron took his first steps, spoke his first words, and began to shape his identity. Daily life for Barron was unlike that of any ordinary child. He was cared for by nannies, guided by private tutors, and constantly surrounded by a ring of security. Every movement, even the simplest outing, was carefully managed and protected. While other children might have walked to a neighborhood school or played in a park nearby, Barron's routines were orchestrated within the walls of luxury and caution. His normal was a reality few could ever imagine, one where privilege and protection went hand in hand. At the heart of his upbringing was Melania Trump, a mother who took an unusually strong role in shaping her son's early years. She was deeply involved, often emphasizing that Barron should have as normal a childhood as possible, despite the towering wealth and constant media attention. Melania was known to be protective, sometimes even turning down social events to spend more time with him, making sure that within the golden cage of Trump Tower, Barron still felt the warmth of maternal presence. Yet one cannot help but wonder, was life inside such a massive gilded palace a dream or a form of isolation? Did Barron ever long to run across a playground, scrape his knees, or ride a bicycle down an ordinary street? Instead of swings and slides, his view was the Manhattan skyline from the penthouse rooftop. Instead of neighborhood friends knocking at the door, he lived in a world where every visitor was filtered through layers of staff and security. This contrast defines Barron's early childhood, a boy with everything money could buy, yet perhaps missing some of the simple grounding experiences that shape most children. Inside Trump Tower, Barron lived in luxury beyond imagination, but also in a bubble that few could ever break. For Barron, Trump, education was never simply about textbooks and classrooms. From the very beginning, his parents ensured that his schooling matched the prestige of the family name. In New York, Barron attended some of the city's most exclusive private schools institutions where tuition alone cost more than most families' annual incomes. These schools were carefully chosen not just for their academic rigor, but also for the discretion they offered. In a world where every headline could turn into a spectacle, privacy was priceless. Melania Trump played the most active role in shaping Barron's education. She often emphasized the importance of balance. While Barron was destined to live in a highly public world, she wanted him grounded in knowledge and culture. Determined to pass on her heritage, she raised him bilingual, ensuring that Slovenian was spoken at home alongside English. This wasn't just about language, it was about identity, about giving Barron a connection to his roots beyond the glittering towers of Manhattan. She reportedly helped him with schoolwork, encouraged his curiosity, and insisted on shielding him from unnecessary publicity. Donald Trump's influence was different. Proud of his youngest son, he often spoke about Barron in interviews, describing him as smart, tall, and special. Yet Donald's life was consumed by business ventures, media appearances, and eventually politics. While Melania focused on the daily details of Barron's education, Donald offered pride and admiration from a distance, making sure the world knew that his youngest heir was someone worth watching. Barron's classmates and social circle reflected his rarefied world. He was surrounded by the children of billionaires, diplomats, and high-profile figures, peers who, like him, were growing up in a bubble of wealth and influence. Playdates weren't in neighborhood backyards, but in penthouses, embassies, and country clubs. Friendships for Barron meant connections that carried not just personal significance, but often social and political weight as well. In many ways, Barron's education was less about preparing him for tests and more about preparing him for a life unlike any other, a life where privilege, power, and expectation would always be intertwined. The year 2016 marked a dramatic turning point in Barron Trump's young life. Until then, his world had been defined by the shimmering luxury of Trump Tower penthouse views of Manhattan Golden Halls and a carefully protected bubble. But when Donald Trump won the presidency, Barron's reality shifted overnight. No longer just the son of a real estate mogul, he became the child of the most powerful man in the world. The move from a life of private privilege to the center of global politics was nothing short of shocking. Melania Trump, ever protective of her son, chose not to uproot him immediately. While Donald moved to Washington to begin his term, Barron and Melania remained in New York for several months, allowing him to complete his school year without disruption. This decision reflected Melania's deep commitment to Barron's stability. She understood the pressures of the public eye and wanted to give her son a chance to hold on to some sense of normalcy before being thrust into the whirlwind of the White House. When Barron finally joined his parents in Washington in June 2017, he carried a unique distinction. He was the first boy in decades to live in the White House, the last being John F. Kennedy Jr. in the early 1960s. The symbolism was powerful, a young heir walking the same historic halls once graced by another famous presidential child. For the public, it was a reminder that the White House, for all its grandeur and politics, was also a family home. But life there was a far cry from Trump Tower. Every aspect of Barron's daily routine was reshaped by protocols and security. He was surrounded by Secret Service agents, escorted in armored vehicles, and shielded from even the smallest interactions without careful planning. His playtime, his schooling, even his walks across the lawn were choreographed with precision. What had once been the privacy of a penthouse was replaced by the scrutiny of the most famous residents on Earth. For Barron, the transition from Manhattan's glittering isolation to Washington's political battlefield was both extraordinary and confining. He had gained a place in history, but at the cost of the simplicity and freedom most children take for granted. From the moment Barron Trump stepped into public view as the youngest son of a U.S. president, the fascination around him grew to almost mythical levels. Unlike his older siblings who had already taken on public roles in business and politics, Barron was just a child, yet the cameras followed his every move. Viral memes, endless speculation about his demeanor, and paparazzi snapshots painted him as both a symbol of innocence and mystery. For many, he became the silent Trump, the boy who said little but captured global attention with a single expression. Melania Trump, fiercely protective of her only son, made it her mission to shield him from the harshest aspects of political life. While Donald Trump thrived in the spotlight, Melania fought to carve out privacy for Barron, insisting that he should have as normal a childhood as possible. She refused to let him become a political pawn, reminding the media that Barron was just a boy, not a public figure to be dissected. Still, the pressure of growing up in such an environment could not be ignored. Barron was often quiet and reserved, appearing cautious in public. Yet there were rare glimpses of his personality that broke through the controlled image, like the playful moments caught on camera during his father's inauguration, or the subtle expressions that went viral online. These flashes of authenticity only fueled curiosity: who was Barron Trump behind the carefully guarded walls of privacy? The larger question lingers: how does a child maintain his identity when the world insists on defining him before he has the chance to define himself? For Barron, childhood under the spotlight was not just about privilege and power. It was about learning how to exist between two worlds: the private sanctuary his mother fought to preserve, and the relentless public gaze that came with his last name. For most children, home means a backyard, a neighborhood playground, or a cozy bedroom filled with toys. For Barron Trump, however, home for several years meant the most famous residence in the world, the White House. Imagine being a young boy and waking up not in a suburban house or penthouse suite, but in a mansion filled with portraits of presidents, rooms layered with history and gardens that had witnessed centuries of American life. While other kids saw the White House on field trips or postcards, Barron walked its corridors daily, the echo of his footsteps mingling with the weight of history. The White House grounds became in many ways his personal playground. The South Lawn, where presidents traditionally land in Marine One, doubled as his wide-open field to run across. The Rose Garden, usually a stage for press conferences and ceremonies, was a space he could wander with his mother. Yet even in these moments, the reality of being a president's son was never far away. Friends could not simply stop by after school. Sleepovers required background checks, and every movement was shadowed by the ever-present Secret Service. For Barron, freedom was always measured within layers of security. Holidays, too, were unlike anything most children experience. Christmas at the White House meant towering trees decorated by staff, twinkling lights on a grand scale, and celebrations filled with diplomats and dignitaries. Easter brought the famous White House Easter egg roll, where Barron found himself both participant and host, sharing his home with thousands of visitors. State dinners unfolded not as rare spectacles, but as events unfolding just outside his private quarters. Glamour surrounded him, yet so did a constant sense of formality and surveillance. This duality defined Barron's childhood in Washington. On the surface, it seemed enchanted marble halls as playrooms, historic gardens as his backyard, and celebrations most children could only dream of. But behind the glittering facade lay restrictions, a life where spontaneity was nearly impossible, and where every game, every outing, and every laugh carried the shadow of watchful eyes. For Barron Trump, the White House was both a playground and a gilded cage. If there is one constant in Barron Trump's unusual childhood, it is the presence of a fiercely protective mother. Melania Trump, elegant yet private, chose a role that went far beyond being the First Lady. She became Barron's shield against the relentless gaze of the world. For her, motherhood was not something to be compromised for politics or power. From the very beginning, she devoted herself to ensuring that her only son would not lose his sense of normalcy, even as history pushed him into the spotlight. One of the clearest signs of this devotion came in 2016 when Donald Trump won the presidency. While the world expected the First Lady to immediately take up residence in the White House, Melania made a different choice. She stayed behind in New York for several months, keeping Barron enrolled at Columbia Grammar and Preparatory School until he finished the academic year. That decision, though criticized by some, revealed her priorities. Barron's stability mattered more than political optics. She knew that the glare of Washington could wait, her son's comfort and continuity could not. Melania herself often repeated a guiding principle: I keep Barron grounded. Behind the golden walls of Trump Tower and later the polished grandeur of the White House, she tried to raise her son with disciplined manners and awareness of the real world. She insisted he speak her native Slovenian as well as English, cultivating roots as well as wings. While Donald Trump thrived on cameras, rallies, and constant performance, Melania's stage was quieter, built on bedtime routines, privacy, and the steady reminder that Barron was a boy before he was a Trump. Yet the emotional complexity cannot be ignored. Was Melania's fierce protection both a blessing and a cage? In her effort to shield Barron, did she also limit his chance to experience the wider world? The boundaries she built kept out the chaos of politics, but they also kept Barron within walls of silence and isolation. Perhaps this paradox is what makes Barron's story so compelling: a childhood where love was both a shelter and a barrier crafted by a mother determined to protect her son at all costs. Barron Trump's childhood was painted in golden strokes, yet beneath the shimmering surface lay shades of solitude that few could truly understand. As the son of a billionaire turned president, his life was filled with privileges most children could only dream of. He had access to private jets, lavish holidays in Mar-a-Lago or international resorts, and the kind of education tailored for the elite. Museums, historic cities, and luxury destinations were not distant fantasies but regular chapters in his life. To the outside world, Barron seemed like a young prince living in endless privilege. Yet the other side of this golden coin was a far lonelier truth. Unlike ordinary children who could run to a friend's house or meet at the local park, Barron's movements were guarded and monitored. Playdates required logistics approvals and the ever-present shadow of security agents. While his classmates might have formed spontaneous friendships, Barron's social circle was narrow, often limited to other children of billionaires, diplomats, or political insiders. In such a carefully curated world, how does a boy learn the joy of simple, carefree friendship? The weight of constant observation also shaped his early years. Every step, every gesture, every expression risked becoming a viral headline or internet meme. To grow up while the world dissected your silence, your clothing, even your posture was to grow up without the shelter of anonymity. Barron, despite the luxury, lived under the invisible bars of a gilded cage where the cost of wealth and fame was freedom itself. In many ways, his life echoed that of royal children across the globe, princes and princesses who grow up surrounded by opulence, but rarely by normalcy. Like them, Barron inherited both privilege and restriction. He was elevated by his father's empire and presidency, yet constrained by the very power that lifted him. His story is one of duality, a boy who had the world at his fingertips, yet often found himself alone wandering the vast golden halls of privilege that could never replace the warmth of ordinary childhood moments. Despite the layers of privacy carefully built around him, small glimpses into Barron Trump's world have revealed pieces of his personality and hidden talents. While he has remained mostly silent in the public eye, those fleeting moments suggest a boy shaped not only by his environment, but also by his own quiet interests. Sports, for instance, have always been a part of his life. Barron has been photographed on the soccer field competing with intensity and focus, and he has occasionally joined his father for a round of golf. These glimpses hint at a young man who thrives on physical activity, discipline, and the satisfaction of teamwork. Beyond sports, Barron is said to have a keen interest in technology and gaming, a passion that aligns him more with his generation than with the gilded traditions of his family name. Like many teenagers, he has spent time in front of computer screens, navigating digital worlds where for once he is not defined by the Trump legacy, but by his own skills and creativity. In these spaces, perhaps Barron has found a rare freedom and identity separate from politics, wealth, and constant public scrutiny. Another defining feature of Barron is his remarkable height. Towering over many adults, he has often drawn attention simply by his presence. His height combined with his quiet demeanor gives him an air of maturity beyond his years. Photographs of him walking beside his parents or stepping into public events often spark astonishment. He no longer looks like a child, but a figure already commanding space in any room he enters. Yet what truly defines Barron is not what he shows, but what he withholds. His quiet, introverted nature has become a shield, allowing him to observe rather than perform, to reflect rather than react. In a family built on showmanship, his silence is striking, perhaps even powerful. Could this calm, reserved personality be his greatest strength for the future? In a world where noise dominates and attention is currency, Barron's ability to remain grounded and mysterious might one day become his unique advantage. Barron Trump occupies a place in history unlike any of his siblings. He is not only the youngest of Donald Trump's children, but also the only child of Melania Trump, making him both the last and perhaps most mysterious heir of the Trump dynasty in the political era. While his brothers and sisters have carved out visible paths, whether in business, politics, or media, Barron remains largely unshaped by public expectation, a figure of possibility more than definition. His position is unique, the final son of a president whose legacy continues to dominate American politics, and the quiet presence in a family built on spectacle. This uniqueness has fueled speculation. What role, if any, will Barron play in the Trump dynasty's future? Could he step forward one day, joining the political stage where his father and sister Ivanka once stood? His height, presence, and calm demeanor suggest a natural ability to command attention if he chooses. Or perhaps, like many heirs of powerful families, Barron will find his path in the world of business, carrying on the Trump name in boardrooms rather than on ballots. There is also the possibility that he will turn away from both, choosing a private life far from the spotlight, creating an identity separate from the Trump brand. Yet one truth remains: Barron's childhood, luxurious and carefully guarded, was not simply a tale of privilege. It may, in hindsight, be seen as preparation. The wealth, the discipline of privacy, the early exposure to politics and power, all these elements are threads weaving together a destiny still unwritten. In him, the Trump legacy finds both its youngest face and its greatest unknown. And so the question lingers: when the time comes, will Barron Trump choose to step into the arena, or will he remain the silent heir holding the weight of expectation while writing a story entirely his own? From the golden penthouse of Trump Tower to the historic halls of the White House, Barron Trump's journey has been anything but ordinary. Yet despite growing up in the heart of power and privilege, he remains an enigma, both visible to the world and hidden behind the protective walls built by his mother and the Trump legacy itself. He is the youngest face of a dynasty that has shaped American politics, but his true future is still unwritten. So what do you think? Will Barron one day step forward to carry on the Trump dynasty's legacy, or will he choose to create an entirely new path for himself? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more hidden stories about the Trump family and other powerful dynasties that continue to shape the world behind the headlines.
From a young age, my parents impressed on me.
And Barack and I were raised with so many of the same values.
Your word is your bond, and you do what you say and keep your promise.
That you treat people with dignity and respect.
The summer of 2016 was charged with excitement and tension as the Republican National Convention transformed Cleveland into the center of the political world. Delegates filled the arena, cameras flashed endlessly, and millions of Americans watched closely, waiting to witness the personalities who would shape the next chapter of the nation. Amid the spectacle, one figure quietly captivated attention: Melania Trump. For many, this was the first time she appeared not merely as Donald Trump's glamorous wife, but as a woman stepping into the role of the future First Lady of the United States. The expectations were enormous. Could she command the stage with poise? Would her words reflect her own perspective, or simply echo the campaign's message? The cameras zoomed in on her elegant presence, while commentators and social media speculated endlessly about what she might say. Melania's entrance was magnetic. Dressed with understated sophistication, she carried herself with a calm confidence that contrasted the whirlwind of the convention. Every gesture, every measured step toward the podium suggested a woman conscious of history, aware of the scrutiny awaiting her words. She was no longer just a spouse of a candidate, she was a public figure poised to define her own narrative. When she began to speak, her voice was calm, measured, and deliberate. For the first time, millions heard her perspective on family, social responsibility, and her role alongside Donald Trump. The audience leaned in, eager to capture not just the content of her speech, but the subtleties of her tone, her pauses, and her expressions. Media outlets dissected every line while viewers debated her style and sincerity. In that moment, Melania's presence became a story in itself, a story of grace, influence, and the careful crafting of public identity. What made her speech remarkable was not just the words she chose, but the human dimension behind them. Melania embodied the tension between private devotion and public expectation, between personal identity and national attention. She was acutely aware that every move was being scrutinized, every gesture analyzed, and yet she projected calm confidence and control. By the end of her address, she had transcended the role of candidate's wife to become an emerging public figure whose voice would be closely watched for years to come. The 2016 Republican National Convention was more than a political event. It was a cultural moment that introduced Melania Trump to the American public in a commanding, unforgettable way. Her speech captured attention, sparked debate, and signaled the beginning of her journey on the national stage. In that summer of spectacle and anticipation, Melania stepped forward not just as a figure beside a candidate, but as a woman beginning to shape her own story, one that would intertwine with the country's history in ways the world was only beginning to see. Before we dive into this captivating story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. That way you won't miss any of our exclusive stories about power, wealth, and the hidden truths behind the world's most talked about figures. When Melania Trump took the podium at the 2016 Republican National Convention, the air was thick with expectation. Millions of Americans were tuning in, eager to hear the words of a woman who would soon step into the nation's most visible and scrutinized role, First Lady of the United States. Her speech promised a personal perspective, a reflection not only of her husband's candidacy, but of the values she held dear. From the very first sentence, it was clear that her message was built around admiration, family, and character. She spoke of Donald Trump with reverence, portraying him as a man of vision and strength, someone devoted not only to his own ambitions, but to the betterment of the country. There was a personal warmth in her tone, a sense that she was speaking from the heart about a partner she had supported through the highs and lows of life in the public eye. Beyond praise for her husband, Melania emphasized the ideals that she believed were foundational to American life. She spoke passionately about family, framing it as the bedrock of society and the source of resilience, guidance, and moral grounding. She highlighted the importance of education, portraying it as a pathway not only to personal success, but to the ability to contribute meaningfully to one's community. And woven through her remarks was a call to kindness and respect, values she framed as essential for nurturing both strong families and a strong nation. Her speech, in its structure and tone, sought to strike a balance between personal narrative and public aspiration, blending the warmth of a spouse's admiration with the solemnity of someone stepping into a historic national role. Yet what should have been a straightforward introduction of a future First Lady to the American public quickly became the center of controversy. Observers noticed an uncomfortable echo in her words as several passages closely mirrored a speech delivered years earlier by Michelle Obama at the Democratic National Convention. Phrases and sentence structures bore a striking resemblance, and critics and commentators seized upon the similarities, igniting a debate about originality, authorship, and the pressures of political messaging. Some argued that the resemblance was unintentional, a coincidence born from the commonality of certain rhetorical themes in political speeches. Others insisted it represented a clear case of plagiarism, a misstep that raised questions about the speechwriting process and the preparation Melania had received. The controversy added a new dimension to the public's perception of the speech. Suddenly, attention was split between the heartfelt messages of family, education, and kindness, and the more uncomfortable discussion of borrowed language. News outlets highlighted side-by-side comparisons, and social media erupted with analysis, memes, and heated commentary. Every pause, every inflection of her voice, every gesture was now under the microscope, not only for the content she delivered, but for what it revealed about authenticity, preparation, and the pressures facing someone entering such a hyper-visible role. In this way, a single speech became both an introduction and a test, a moment to observe her demeanor under scrutiny, to see how she managed the collision of personal expression and public expectation. Yet even amidst the criticism, there was a sense that Melania's presence and delivery communicated more than words on a page could capture. The speech revealed a woman negotiating an impossible balance, honoring her husband, asserting her values, and navigating the intense gaze of a nation eager to judge every nuance. The admiration for family, the emphasis on education, and the call for kindness resonated with viewers who sought a glimpse of the human being behind the title of candidate's wife. At the same time, the controversy over the borrowed passages reminded the public of the challenges inherent in politics, where every sentence is dissected, every phrase compared, and every gesture analyzed for meaning. Ultimately, Melania Trump's speech at the Republican National Convention was a complex moment of introduction, aspiration, and controversy. It sought to convey love values and vision, but it also highlighted the intense scrutiny that accompanies any public act in modern American politics. Her words, both celebrated and critiqued, offered a glimpse into the dual realities she would face as First Lady: the challenge of communicating personal authenticity while navigating the relentless demands of a national stage, and the constant interplay between public perception and private intention. In that moment, the world saw Melania not just as a political spouse, but as a figure stepping into history, learning to walk the tightrope between admiration and criticism, message and misstep, presence and perception, all in the span of a single unforgettable speech. Almost immediately after Melania Trump delivered her speech at the 2016 Republican National Convention, the reaction from the media was swift and intense. Within minutes, headlines began to appear across major news outlets, each one dissecting her every word, gesture, and pause. The speech, meant to introduce the future First Lady to the American public, became a lightning rod for controversy. Journalists and commentators alike noticed striking similarities between passages in her address and portions of a speech delivered years earlier by Michelle Obama at the Democratic National Convention. The discovery sparked an avalanche of articles, analyses, and opinion pieces, each scrutinizing the parallels in phrasing and structure. Some of the headlines were nothing short of sensational, designed to grab attention and provoke reaction. One particularly bold example read, "Melania Trump accused of plagiarizing Michelle Obama's speech," a line that immediately circulated across both traditional and digital platforms. Television networks ran segments comparing the text side by side, while political talk shows debated the implications of the apparent mimicry. On cable news, pundits and anchors replayed video clips of both speeches, pausing repeatedly to highlight identical turns of phrase, and audiences were invited to weigh in on whether the similarities were coincidental or deliberate. The coverage was relentless, capturing the attention of millions and ensuring that the story would dominate news cycles for days to come. As the story exploded in traditional media, it found an even more frenetic life on social media platforms. Twitter feeds, Facebook timelines, and Instagram posts filled with screenshots, memes, and GIFs illustrating the overlap between Melania's words and Michelle Obama's. Users shared side-by-side comparisons highlighting phrases such as values, education, and family, or work hard and be kind, prompting thousands of retweets, likes, and comments within hours. The controversy became a viral phenomenon, with hashtags trending nationally and even internationally, drawing attention from political observers, media commentators, and ordinary citizens alike. Social media transformed the event from a single speech into a communal debate, with users dissecting every line, speculating about speechwriters, and questioning the authenticity of Melania's message. The viral spread of the story was accelerated by the very nature of online platforms, where rapid sharing, algorithmic amplification, and user engagement magnify even minor controversies. Each retweet, share, or comment acted like a ripple in a pond, carrying the story further and faster than traditional media could have achieved alone. Memes juxtaposing Melania and Michelle Obama proliferated, often with biting humor, and opinionated threads sparked hours-long discussions about political ethics, originality, and the pressures of public life. The story was no longer just about a speech. It became a reflection of how modern media and social networks can amplify, distort, and transform a moment into a global conversation almost instantaneously. Amid the viral frenzy, public reactions varied widely. Some defended Melania, suggesting the resemblance was coincidental or the result of well-intentioned speechwriting assistance, while others criticized her for a lack of authenticity and originality. The debate extended beyond politics into cultural commentary about women in the public eye, the expectations of first ladies, and the intense scrutiny that accompanies any public appearance. Every news cycle renewed the conversation, and social media ensured that the discussion remained alive around the clock, with new analyses, memes, and critiques emerging daily. In retrospect, the media and social media storm surrounding Melania's speech highlighted not only the intensity of political scrutiny, but also the dynamics of information dissemination in the digital age. What might have once been a brief localized story became an international spectacle amplified by the interconnected web of traditional journalism, social media virality, and public fascination. The plagiarism allegations dominated conversations, but they also provided a window into the broader expectations placed on public figures, the relentless nature of modern news cycles, and the ways in which a single speech can become a defining moment, celebrated, dissected, and debated long after the applause has faded. In the end, Melania Trump's 2016 convention speech was remembered not just for its content, but for the media maelstrom. It unleashed a vivid example of how modern political communication and digital culture collide in real time. The public reaction to Melania Trump's 2016 Republican National Convention speech was immediate, polarized, and intense, spilling across social media platforms in a wave of opinions that seemed impossible to contain. Within hours of the speech, millions of Twitter posts, Facebook comments, and Instagram discussions erupted, reflecting the raw, unfiltered spectrum of American public sentiment. For some, the speech was a shocking moment, a glaring example of what they saw as blatant plagiarism. Side-by-side comparisons with Michelle Obama's previous convention address fueled these accusations, and hashtags condemning the speech surged across platforms, often accompanied by GIFs, memes, and biting commentary. Critics labeled the speech a copy-and-paste misstep, questioning Melania's authenticity, her credibility, and the legitimacy of her role in a campaign that had already drawn intense scrutiny. The language of the criticism was sharp sometimes, merciless, reflecting the unrelenting expectations placed on public figures, particularly women stepping into historically scrutinized roles. Yet alongside the criticism, a wave of defense emerged equally fervent. Many social media users and commentators rushed to Melania's side, emphasizing the fact that she was a newcomer to the political stage, entering a world where every gesture, word, and pause is dissected and judged. They argued that the resemblance to Michelle Obama's speech was a minor oversight, at worst a coincidence at best, and certainly not a reflection of intent to deceive. Supporters highlighted the pressures of public speaking, the challenges of crafting a speech under intense political and media scrutiny, and the inherent difficulty of navigating a hyper-visible debut. For them, the speech was less a scandal and more a moment of human vulnerability, a reminder that even those in the most glamorous and scrutinized positions are still learning, still adapting, and still finding their footing. The online discourse quickly transformed into a battleground of perspectives, with sharp lines drawn between those who interpreted the similarities as an ethical lapse and those who framed it as an understandable misstep. Memes, opinion threads, and viral posts reflected both sides. Some mocked the apparent mimicry with biting humor, while others posted messages of encouragement, urging the public to consider the humanity of someone thrust into the unforgiving spotlight of American politics. On platforms like Reddit and Twitter, long threads dissected the minutiae of every sentence, while YouTube commentators produced side-by-side analyses, drawing hundreds of thousands of views. The story became not only about Melania's words, but about the very nature of public judgment, media amplification, and the way a single speech could ignite a national conversation about originality, intent, and fairness. Interestingly, this polarized public reaction also underscored a broader cultural discussion about women in the political spotlight. Many defenders of Melania pointed out that she was navigating a world historically dominated by men stepping into a role with almost no prior experience and doing so under the microscope of a nation that tends to scrutinize women far more harshly than men. For some, this context transformed the controversy from a simple question of textual similarity into a reflection on the double standards women face in public life, especially women who are married to powerful men and expected to balance support, visibility, and independence all at once. Even amid jokes, criticism, and viral commentary, a segment of the public seemed to recognize the delicate balancing act she faced, maintaining dignity, expressing personal values, and asserting a sense of agency while contending with extraordinary public attention. In the end, the public reaction to Melania Trump's speech was a vivid display of the polarized nature of modern American discourse, amplified by social media's immediacy and reach. For every accusation of plagiarism, there was a defense rooted in empathy, context, and recognition of her inexperience in politics. For every mocking meme, there was a post celebrating her poised composure and the effort required to step into a national stage under such intense scrutiny. The incident revealed not only the power of social media to shape narratives in real time, but also the deeply personal and emotional nature of public judgment, where admiration, skepticism, and criticism coexist in an often overwhelming cacophony. Melania's debut on the political stage was in this sense not only an introduction, but a trial by fire, one that would define public perception, challenge her resilience, and illuminate the complex interplay between celebrity politics and the relentless gaze of an engaged, vocal, and divided public. The controversy surrounding Melania Trump's 2016 Republican National Convention speech left a lasting mark not only on public perception, but also on the way the media, political analysts, and the American public viewed her role in the political sphere. Almost immediately, questions arose about her involvement in the crafting of her own speech. Had she written it herself, or had she relied entirely on speechwriters? And if she had, how much control did she truly have over the words she delivered on such a critical stage? The allegations of plagiarism, whether intentional or not, cast a shadow over her political debut, prompting a broader discussion about authenticity, agency, and the role of spouses in highly publicized political campaigns. For many observers, what had begun as a ceremonial introduction to the future First Lady transformed into a test of credibility and competence. In the months and years that followed, every appearance Melania made was scrutinized in the context of that initial speech. The media tracked her closely, analyzing the tone, content, and style of her public remarks, looking for continuity or deviation from what had been presented in Cleveland. Comparisons were made with other First Ladies, with commentators dissecting her mannerisms, word choices, and even her body language. Interviews, televised appearances, and public addresses became opportunities for journalists and the public alike to evaluate her presence and influence. The scrutiny highlighted an unspoken reality in the political world. Every word, gesture, and expression carries weight, and past controversies can linger indefinitely, shaping the narrative around a figure's competence and authenticity. The lasting impact of the speech controversy extended beyond Melania herself to the broader political landscape. It served as a cautionary tale for campaign speechwriters and public figures, illustrating the importance of meticulous preparation, thorough review, and rigorous sourcing. In today's media environment, where every speech can be recorded, archived, and instantly compared to historical texts, even minor lapses can spiral into major controversies. The lesson was clear: political messaging is not just about the ideas conveyed, it is about the perception of integrity, originality, and accountability. A single misstep can ripple through the public consciousness, influencing how a figure is perceived for years to come. Beyond the technical lessons, the episode also underscored the human dimension of political life. Melania's experience illustrated the challenges faced by individuals stepping into the spotlight for the first time, particularly in roles that carry symbolic and cultural significance. The scrutiny of her speech, while often harsh, highlighted the delicate balancing act required to maintain both personal dignity and public credibility. It revealed the pressures of navigating an arena where personal expression, political loyalty, and public expectation intersect in ways that few civilians ever experience. For Melania, the controversy became a defining moment, an initiation into the realities of public life at the highest level, where every action is analyzed, every word measured, and every gesture interpreted for its political resonance. Ultimately, the 2016 convention speech controversy left an indelible mark on Melania Trump's public persona. It illuminated the complexities of political debut, the intense scrutiny faced by those in the public eye, and the enduring significance of preparation and authenticity. While the incident brought criticism and skepticism, it also provided a powerful learning experience, highlighting that in politics, perception is as crucial as content, and that even minor lapses in diligence can become magnified under the unrelenting gaze of the media and the public. The episode served as a reminder that the role of a public figure is never static. It evolves continuously under observation, where every speech appearance and action contributes to the ongoing construction of reputation, influence, and legacy. In the end, the lesson was unmistakable in political life: meticulous preparation, Careful sourcing and awareness of public perception are not just advisable, they are essential. The 2016 Republican National Convention was more than just a political event. It was a moment of symbolic significance, marking Melania Trump's first steps into the glaring spotlight of American politics. On that stage, she moved with poise and grace, introducing herself to a nation that had long known her as a model, a wife, and a mother, but now faced the emergence of a public figure navigating the complexities of political visibility. Her speech, while carefully crafted, sparked a question that lingered in the minds of viewers. Was the resemblance to Michelle Obama's words merely a coincidence, or was it intentional? This ambiguity captivated the public, leaving an open-ended mystery for debate. Beyond the controversy, Melania's presence highlighted a distinctive style that would come to define her political persona: subtle yet noticeable, reserved yet commanding attention through elegance and measured gestures. In stepping into the national stage, she demonstrated that influence in politics is not always loud or overt. Sometimes it is the quiet, composed presence that leaves the strongest impression. And as we reflect on that moment, the question remains, do you see it as coincidence or deliberate? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and share your perspective. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the lives and stories behind public figures. Among all the members of the powerful Trump dynasty, one name lingers most in silence, wrapped in curiosity and speculation: Barron Trump. Unlike his siblings, Ivanka Jr. and Eric, who grew up in the public eye, delivering speeches, giving interviews, and building careers under constant attention, Barron has remained almost invisible. While Ivanka dazzled with elegance, Don Jr. sharpened his political voice, and Eric displayed unwavering loyalty to the family empire. Barron took a different path, the path of shadows, silence, and distance. From the moment Donald Trump entered the White House in 2017, Barron was thrust into a world beyond imagination for someone his age. Yet instead of being shaped into a public figure, he was shielded by Melania, by his family, and perhaps by deliberate strategy. There were no campaign speeches, no press conferences, and no social media posts. Only rare glimpses remained: a boy walking quietly beside his parents, taller than most of his peers, a silent figure whose very absence sparked even greater curiosity. And this silence carries meaning. In the realm of power, where every move is calculated, absence can be just as powerful as presence. Is the Trump family preserving Barron as their hidden secret card, a figure destined to emerge only when the time is right? Or is he simply a teenager granted the rare privilege of growing up privately, shielded from the relentless storm of politics and media? This is where our story begins, with Barron Trump, the youngest and most enigmatic heir of a dynasty built on visibility and dominance, yet choosing the safety of shadows. Shadows that in time may reveal a destiny greater than anyone dares to expect. From the moment Donald Trump entered the White House in 2017, Barron was thrust into a world beyond imagination for someone his age. Yet instead of being shaped into a public figure, he was shielded by Melania, by his family, and perhaps Barron Trump's childhood was unlike that of any other presidential child in modern American history. While most first children are gradually introduced to the public, whether through photographs, public school events, or carefully staged White House appearances, Melania Trump made a deliberate choice to shield her son. She understood better than anyone the ruthless nature of the media and the relentless curiosity surrounding the Trump name. For her, Barron's well-being meant more than publicity or political advantage. She stood firm in drawing a protective circle around her son, ensuring that while his father was consumed by politics, Barron could still hold on to fragments of a normal childhood. But that childhood was anything but ordinary. Growing up inside the White House from 2017, Barron lived under an intense level of public fascination. Each rare photograph sparked discussions online. Each brief appearance was magnified into speculation about his personality, his education, even his future role in the Trump legacy. For every step he took in public, there seemed to be 1,000 eyes watching, waiting, interpreting. And yet, instead of exposure, the strategy was silence: fewer images, fewer words, and almost no insight into his inner life. In protecting Barron from the chaos, Melania created a paradox: the less people saw of him, the more curious they became. This paradox of privacy became Barron's defining feature. His absence from headlines made him more intriguing than if he had been a regular presence in the media. In a family where visibility often equals power, Barron's invisibility became his strength. He became not only the youngest Trump, but also the most mysterious and enigma, carefully guarded by his mother growing up in the shadow of one of the world's most controversial presidencies. And perhaps in that silence, Melania was planting the seeds of a different kind of influence for her son, not the noise of public exposure, but the quiet power of anticipation. From the very beginning, Barron Trump has stood out in ways that are impossible to ignore. His towering height alone sets him apart. By his mid-teens, he was already taller than his father, casting an unexpected presence that makes him impossible to overlook in any public appearance. But it is not just about physical stature, it is the aura he carries. Even in silence, there is something commanding about him, a sense of gravity that makes people pay attention, without him ever having to say a word. Unlike his siblings who rely on speeches and media to assert influence, Barron possesses an unspoken presence that speaks volumes. Part of this distinction comes from the education and upbringing Melania curated for him. Barron has attended elite private schools surrounded by privilege, but also international diversity. Raised in a bilingual household with Slovenian from his mother and English from his father, Barron has been exposed to multiple languages and cultures from a young age. Combined with the global spotlight of his father's presidency, his worldview is already broader than most young men of his age. While other teenagers worry about exams and sports, Barron has lived through international diplomacy, media storms, and the complexities of being part of one of the most polarizing families in the world. This makes Barron's journey even more intriguing when compared to the heirs of other political dynasties. The Kennedys, the Bushes, even the Clintons all raised their children to be public figures, early giving them roles in campaigns or public office as soon as they were ready. Barron, on the other hand, has been kept in the shadows, yet he embodies the same qualities, stature, education, poise, that mark a future leader. The contrast is striking. While others seek visibility to secure their legacy, Barron's mystery itself has become his defining legacy, and perhaps that difference will one day set him apart as the most unexpected heir of them all. The Trump dynasty has always operated like a deck of carefully chosen cards, with each child stepping into a role that reflects both personality and strategy. Ivanka Trump, polished and articulate, became the golden daughter, the face of sophistication and diplomacy, bridging her father's brashness with a softer, marketable image. Donald Trump Jr., outspoken and combative, has taken on the role of warrior, rallying conservative voices and keeping the Trump brand alive in the world of politics. Eric Trump, less flashy but loyal and steady, works behind the scenes to ensure the family business remains strong, embodying the card of reliability. Even Tiffany, often overlooked, has carved her place as the quieter outsider, present when needed, but never fully immersed in the machinery of power. Each of these roles is visible, defined, and deliberate. Together, they form a picture of a dynasty where every move is calculated, every public appearance meant to strengthen the Trump legacy. Yet within this deck, one card remains face down: Barron Trump. Unlike his siblings, he has not yet been assigned a role. There are no speeches, no business ventures, no official appearances beyond necessity. His life is the question mark in a family otherwise filled with exclamation points. Perhaps this is by design. In the world of strategy, the card left unplayed can often be the most powerful. Barron's undefined role makes him the most unpredictable, and in politics, unpredictability is a weapon. By keeping him in the shadows, the family preserves his potential for the future, whether in business, politics, or an entirely different path. While his siblings play their roles openly, Barron's silence holds a weight of its own, leaving the world to wonder, is he the ace the Trump dynasty is waiting to reveal at the perfect moment? Speculation about Barron Trump's future has always been a subject of fascination precisely because nothing has been defined. Some imagine him stepping into politics as Trump 2.0, a younger, taller, and perhaps more polished version of his father. With his commanding presence, elite education, and the Trump name behind him, Barron already carries the ingredients of a political figure who could continue the dynasty's influence. The idea of him one day standing on a debate stage representing a new generation of Trump politics is both intriguing and unsettling for those who either revere or resist the family legacy. Others envision a very different path, one rooted not in politics, but in the power of media and technology. Barron raised in an era where digital influence rivals political office may choose to wield his power not through laws and campaigns, but through platforms and innovation. As media continues to shape culture and politics alike, a Trump heir who dominates that realm could hold influence every bit as strong as a senator or president. The thought of Barron leading in this sphere, free from the baggage of direct political battles, would offer the family a new frontier of dominance. And yet there remains a third possibility that Barron will reject both the stage of politics and the arena of media, choosing instead a life of privacy, wealth, and mystery. After all, his silence so far has already made him the most intriguing member of the dynasty. Perhaps his greatest strength will be in never fully revealing his hand, becoming a Trump who holds power not by speaking, but by remaining unknowable. Whether as a political heir, a media mogul, or a figure who thrives in the shadows, Barron Trump represents the one future card the world has yet to see played. Carrying the Trump name is both a crown and a burden. For Barron, the youngest heir of this towering dynasty, the legacy he inherits is unlike that of any ordinary family. On one hand, the Trump name opens doors few could ever dream of: powerful networks, immense wealth, and an instant spotlight that guarantees attention wherever he goes. On the other hand, that same name carries a heavy weight of expectation, comparison, and judgment. The world doesn't just see Barron as himself. It sees him through the lens of his father, Donald Trump, a man who dominated headlines, divided nations, and etched his mark in political history. The benefits are undeniable. Barron stands to inherit not only financial stability, but also a loyal base of millions who admire and follow the Trump brand. His path, should he choose politics or business, would already be paved with influence. He doesn't need to introduce himself. The Trump identity does that for him. Cameras will always be ready to capture his steps. Interviews will be waiting the moment he chooses to speak, and opportunities will appear as if pre-written into his destiny. Yet privilege comes hand in hand with relentless scrutiny. For every admirer, there are critics waiting to compare him to his father, to measure whether Barron can ever match or escape the towering shadow cast by Donald Trump. This is the paradox of legacy. It can elevate him to unimaginable heights, but it can also confine him within expectations that aren't his own. Every choice Barron makes, from career paths to public statements, will inevitably be framed as either continuing or rejecting his father's legacy. And in that tension lies the question that defines his journey. Will Barron embrace the Trump name as a foundation to build upon, or will he forge a new identity beyond it, carving his own mark in history while still carrying the weight of one of the most polarizing names of our time? If Donald Trump's legacy is built on volume, dominance, and spectacle, Melania Trump's influence has always been the opposite: quiet, deliberate, and understated. This contrast is nowhere more evident than in her role as a mother. Behind the walls of their private residences, away from the relentless eyes of the media, Melania has been carefully shaping Barron's image, and perhaps his future. While the world speculates about his silence, it may in fact be the result of her intentional strategy to allow her son to grow without the noise and chaos that defined Donald Trump's rise. Melania has often been described as fiercely protective of Barron, insisting that he live a childhood different from the one her husband would have chosen. She emphasizes refinement over brashness, discretion over publicity, and substance over performance. This vision is reflected in Barron's education at elite private schools, his multilingual exposure to Slovenian and French, and the international environments that surround him. Melania's cosmopolitan background, rooted in European culture and fashion, has given Barron a perspective that feels more global than traditionally American. It is as if she is preparing him not just to be another Trump, but to be something greater, more independent, and perhaps less predictable. In many ways, Melania's silent strategy is an answer to the question of legacy. Where Donald sees the value of brand visibility and dominance, Melania seems to see the importance of privacy, elegance, and distance. She may envision a future where Barron does not replicate his father's polarizing path, but instead carves out a refined identity of his own, whether in politics, business, or an entirely different arena. If so, then the quiet years of Barron's youth are not an accident. They are an investment, a preparation for a destiny yet to be revealed. In today's world where public figures are defined by constant visibility and endless commentary, Barron Trump stands apart. His power lies not in what he says or does publicly, but in what he withholds. Every rare appearance, whether stepping out of a motorcade, walking beside his mother, or being captured in a fleeting photograph, becomes an event in itself, sparking headlines and setting social media abuzz. People notice his extraordinary height, his solemn expression, and the aura of distance he carries. The scarcity of these moments makes them all the more powerful, as if each glimpse is a clue in a larger puzzle the public longs to solve. This fascination extends deeply into online culture. Memes circulate comparing Barron to fictional princes, future leaders, or characters from dystopian novels. Fans speculate about his personality, his education, and what role he might play in the Trump dynasty's future. Admiration for his quiet composure is mixed with curiosity, and curiosity in turn fuels an almost mythic presence. In a digital age dominated by oversharing, Barron's silence feels radical, transforming him into an enigma people cannot look away from. Paradoxically, saying nothing has given Barron more influence than speaking could. While his siblings build their reputations through interviews, books, and political speeches, Barron's mystique allows the public to project their own ideas onto him. He can be imagined as anything: a future politician, a business magnate, or a private intellectual who chooses never to step into the limelight. The less he reveals, the more powerful his image becomes. Mystery in Barron's case is not a weakness, but a weapon, one that may prove more effective than words in shaping his destiny. The Trump brand has never been just about buildings, businesses, or even politics. It is about identity, spectacle, and influence. For years, Donald Trump embodied its raw energy, while Ivanka, Don Jr., and Eric carried different aspects of the family name into public life. Yet as time moves forward, a question emerges: could Barron be the one to carry Trumpism into a new generation? At just the beginning of adulthood, he represents a blank canvas onto which supporters and critics alike project their hopes and fears. His youth alone makes him a potential bridge to audiences that his father has struggled to reach: Gen Z and millennials. This generational link is more significant than it appears. While Donald Trump built his power on television rallies and traditional media, Barron has grown up in the digital age, surrounded by memes, online culture, and global communication. His very silence has already created an online following that thrives on speculation, edits, and admiration. Should Barron choose to step forward, he could embody a modernized version of Trumpism, one that resonates with younger audiences, not through fiery speeches, but through presence, image, and the mystique that already surrounds him. For the Trump dynasty, Barron is more than just the youngest heir. He is a symbol of continuity. Just as political families like the Kennedys or the Bushes cultivated their legacies through generations, Barron represents the possibility of the Trump name outliving its founder, adapting and surviving in a changing world. Whether he embraces politics, media, or an entirely different field, his role as the living thread that connects the Trump legacy to the future cannot be ignored. He is perhaps the quiet promise that the Trump brand is far from finished. As the story of the Trump dynasty continues to unfold, Barron Trump remains its most enigmatic figure. Unlike his siblings, who have already defined themselves in the public eye, Barron is still a blank canvas, an heir who embodies possibility rather than certainty. His silence, his absence from political theater, and his carefully protected youth have preserved an aura of mystery that only deepens with time. In a family where visibility is everything, Barron's greatest strength may be the fact that he has yet to reveal himself. It is this unknown that fuels his power. Because Barron has not yet chosen a path, the public projects countless futures onto him: a political heir who could carry Trumpism into a new era, a media magnate shaped by the digital age, or perhaps an entirely different figure who decides to live privately, untouched by the weight of legacy. Each scenario adds to the fascination, making him not just Donald Trump's youngest son, but a symbol of potential, someone whose destiny remains unwritten and therefore limitless. And so Barron's silence becomes the most powerful card of all. It leaves the world questioning, waiting, and imagining. Perhaps one day, when the moment is right, he will step forward to play his role in history. Or perhaps he will choose to remain in the shadows, defining strength through restraint. The open question remains: will Barron Trump eventually reveal himself as the Trump family's true hidden card? Or will he remain the mystery that keeps the dynasty alive in the imagination of generations to come? What if the quietest Trump heir, Barron, was never meant to stay silent forever? What if the young man once hidden behind the towering figure of his father one day stepped into the spotlight on his own terms? Would he follow the traditional Trump path of business building skyscrapers and empires, or would he break the mold, choosing politics, technology, or even global diplomacy as his stage? What if Barron became the unexpected voice of a new generation in the Trump dynasty, sharper, more modern, more in tune with the digital age than his predecessors? Could he rise as the one who rebrands the Trump legacy for the 21st century? Or perhaps, what if his greatest power is not in politics at all, but in shaping culture, media, or an entirely new field where the Trump name has never reached before? And here is the most intriguing question. What if Barron is the family's true secret card, carefully protected, waiting for the right moment to be played? If so, what role will history assign him? A quiet heir living in luxury and mystery, or a powerful figure who will one day command the world's attention? These questions don't have answers yet, and that's exactly why Barron Trump fascinates millions. His future is a blank page, and every possibility feels both believable and extraordinary. So what do you think? Could Barron rise as the most surprising Trump of all, or will he choose a life away from the storm of politics and power? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and share your opinion. And if you want to keep exploring the untold stories, the hidden possibilities, and the future of America's most talked about family, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Together, we'll uncover the mysteries step by step. Everyone knows Barron Trump as the youngest son of Donald and Melania Trump, the boy who grew up in the world's most powerful residence. But once the Trumps left the White House in January 2021, Barron seemed to vanish almost completely from the public stage. Unlike his siblings who continued making headlines in politics, business, and society, Barron retreated into near total silence. The image the world now holds of him is striking: a towering young man, already over 6'7", who rarely speaks in public and is seen only in fleeting photographs. He is no longer the sleepy boy of Inauguration Day 2017, but neither has he become a public figure in his own right. Instead, he remains a presence defined by mystery, an heir surrounded by secrecy. This story seeks to open those heavy gates once more, not to invade, but to understand. What has life truly been like for Barron after leaving the spotlight of Washington? How does he navigate adolescence and early adulthood, when the world expects him to carry a dynasty's legacy, even as his mother works tirelessly to shield him from it? Beyond the walls of power lies a different reality, and it is that hidden reality we are about to uncover. Before we dive into this captivating story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. That way you won't miss any of our exclusive stories about power, wealth, and the hidden truths behind the world's most talked about figures. On January 20th, 2021, as the Trump presidency officially ended, the world's cameras were fixed on Donald Trump and the political storm that surrounded him. Yet for Barron, then only 14 years old, that day marked something far more personal: the end of a childhood lived inside the world's most watched residence. At an age when most teenagers struggle simply with school friends and self-discovery, Barron faced a transition unlike any other, leaving behind the White House, a place that had shaped his formative years. Melania Trump, ever the protective mother, made a decisive choice. Instead of lingering in New York or Washington, she took her son back to Florida, to the gilded estate of Mar-a-Lago. There she carefully built what she often referred to as a safe circle, a buffer against the relentless curiosity of the press and the noise of politics. For her, Barron's emotional stability came before public appearances, before duties, before everything. Mar-a-Lago, with its vast gardens and secluded corridors, became more than just a residence. It became a fortress of privacy, a sanctuary where Barron could step away from the spotlight and experience something resembling a normal adolescence. To the outside world, he vanished. To Melania, he finally had room to breathe. After leaving Washington, Barron Trump's life took on a strange duality. He now resided at Mar-a-Lago, a palatial resort lined with marble halls, golden chandeliers, and sweeping ocean views. On the surface, it was the picture of luxury, yet for Barron it became something closer to a fortress. The estate was guarded at all hours, security teams ensuring that the teenage son of a former president remained beyond the reach of curious lenses. Public appearances vanished almost overnight. Unlike his older siblings who thrived on cameras and crowds, Barron seemed to disappear into silence. Rarely was he photographed, and when images did surface, they were fleeting. usually a glimpse of his tall frame beside Melania walking quietly, never speaking to reporters. This calculated distance was not an accident. It was Melania's design, a mother's determination to shield her child from a world that feeds on exposure. Thus, Barron's adolescence unfolded in paradox. He lived amid gilded halls, fine dining, and endless acres of manicured lawns, yet he was isolated from the very stage his family dominated. To many, he became more myth than reality, a shadowy presence seen only in passing, always at his mother's side and never truly within reach. For Barron Trump, education has always been treated not as a stage for publicity, but as a shield for privacy. During Donald Trump's presidency, he attended St. Andrew's Episcopal School in Maryland, a place chosen carefully by Melania for its reputation and discreet environment. While the world's cameras hovered over Washington, the school became a sanctuary, a space where Barron could grow without the constant echo of politics. After leaving the White House, the Trumps relocated to Florida, and with that move came another shift in Barron's schooling. He enrolled at a private institution near Palm Beach again, under Melania's close supervision. Every detail, from security protocols to the confidentiality of teachers, was personally overseen by her. For Melania, education was not just about academics. It was about building a protective cocoon where her son could remain a boy first, not a public figure. Today, Barron has stepped into young adulthood as a student at New York University, NYU. Unlike his older siblings who balanced business ventures, political campaigns, and media appearances, Barron's academic path remains intentionally quiet, far from the Trump spotlight. It is perhaps the clearest reflection of Melania's vision that her son should be educated with dignity, independence, and freedom from the relentless pull of politics. Away from cameras and headlines, Barron Trump's true world is built on quiet passions. During his years in Maryland, he joined a local soccer team, finding joy not under the roar of political rallies, but on the green field chasing the ball with teammates who treated him as just another boy. The sport became a rare glimpse into his ordinary side, a reminder that beneath the Trump name was a teenager who loved the game. Yet Barron's deepest interests seemed to lie not in crowds but in solitude. Technology became his constant companion, his laptop the gateway to programming, gaming, and private projects that few outsiders knew about. While his siblings mingled with celebrities and business leaders, Barron often preferred the glow of his screen, diving into digital worlds where he had full control and no one judged him by his last name. This private sanctuary of soccer fields and computer codes painted the portrait of a boy different from the dynasty he was born into. Social interactions remained limited, carefully managed under Melania's watch, but his inner world grew rich with curiosity and independence. In that hidden space, Barron was not a Trump heir or a political symbol. He was simply himself, quietly shaping passions that may one day define the man he will become. Since leaving the White House, Barron Trump has almost entirely vanished from public view, becoming perhaps the most elusive member of one of the world's most scrutinized families. Unlike his siblings who regularly appear in interviews, political events, and media campaigns, Barron's presence is carefully curated, limited to a handful of rare moments. When he does appear walking beside Melania at Mar-a-Lago or accompanying Donald at private gatherings, his towering height, now nearly 2 meters, instantly draws attention. Even in these fleeting glimpses, his stature commands notice, yet the boy behind the frame remains silent. There are no statements, no interviews, no public events with Barron taking center stage. Each appearance is brief, almost incidental, yet it sparks waves of speculation and curiosity. Fans and observers dissect every photograph, every gesture, seeking clues about the teenager's personality, interests, or potential future path. This intentional absence has paradoxically amplified his fame. The less the public sees, the more captivated they become. In a world obsessed with visibility, Barron's invisibility is a rare form of power, quiet, enigmatic, and endlessly fascinating. Barron Trump's relationship with his father, Donald Trump, is unlike the dynamic seen with his older siblings. In speeches, interviews, and public statements, Donald rarely mentions Barron, a stark contrast to the frequent praise he showers on Ivanka, Don Jr., and Eric. When he does speak about his youngest son, it is usually to highlight Barron's remarkable height or his intelligence, small glimpses that hint at pride without exposing personal details. This distance is partly practical. Donald's life is consumed by politics, business ventures, and global media attention, leaving little time for day-to-day interactions. In contrast, Melania remains Barron's constant presence, managing his schedule, schooling, and daily routines, providing the guidance and protection that allow him to grow with stability. As a result, Barron often appears as the outside observer of the Trump family, a quiet figure who exists in the periphery, shielded from the spectacle and chaos that have defined the lives of his siblings. The subtlety of this father-son relationship contributes to Barron's aura of mystery. While the world speculates about how he will follow or diverge from the family path, the restrained visibility of his interactions with Donald reinforces the sense that he is charting a private, carefully guarded course of his own. If Donald Trump represents the public face of the family, Melania Trump has always been the guardian of Barron's private world. From the earliest days of his life, she acted as an unwavering gatekeeper, ensuring that the youngest Trump child remains shielded from the relentless gaze of media and public scrutiny. Her protective instinct extended far beyond the White House years, continuing long after the family left Washington, creating a consistent environment where Barron could grow without intrusion. Melania's presence is almost constant in Barron's life. Whether attending events, stepping out for casual errands, or navigating the vast estate of Mar-a-Lago, she is there by his side, a steady anchor in a world filled with potential exposure. Every public glimpse of Barron is mediated by her careful attention, shaping the image of a boy who moves with quiet composure, often observed only in silhouette beside his mother. This absolute protection has had a profound impact on Barron's personality. The discretion and independence he displays are not accidental. They are cultivated by a mother determined to let her son experience life on his own terms, away from spectacle and judgment. In essence, Melania's devotion has transformed Barron into a figure defined by mystery, a young man whose quiet presence contrasts sharply with the flamboyant legacy of the Trump dynasty. Within the Trump family, Barron occupies a world apart from his older siblings. Don Jr., Eric, and Ivanka have long been immersed in the public eye, blending politics, business, and media with remarkable visibility. Tiffany, while somewhat less politically involved, still maintains a semi-public presence as a socialite and influencer. In contrast, Barron has chosen, or perhaps been carefully guided, to remain on the periphery, completely detached from the family's professional and political ventures. The age difference plays a significant role in this separation. Barron grew up during his father's presidency, years after his siblings had already established themselves as public figures. This gap created a sense of him living in a different generation of the Trump dynasty, one shielded from the glare that defined his older brothers and sisters' formative years. While the others navigated interviews, campaigns, and media appearances, Barron's world revolved around school, technology, and quiet moments at home. This distinct upbringing has also strengthened his bond with Melania. Unlike the other children who spent significant time under Donald's guidance, or with Ivana in earlier years, Barron's primary caregiver has been his mother. Her close presence, protection, and guidance have shaped not only his privacy, but also his personality, cultivating a thoughtful, introspective young man who stands quietly apart from the high-profile lives of his siblings. Barron Trump's near invisibility has paradoxically made him a magnet for speculation and rumor. Because he rarely appears in public, journalists, social media users, and fans alike have filled the silence with stories about his personality, habits, and even potential future in politics. Every photograph, often fleeting glimpses beside Melania or Donald, becomes fodder for analysis, with commentators dissecting posture, expressions, and fashion choices for clues to the young man's character. Height has become one of the most viral aspects of Barron's image. Towering nearly 2 meters, he has inspired countless memes and jokes on platforms like Twitter, portraying him as everything from a mysterious giant to the silent prince of the Trump family. Even playful exaggerations of his size only deepen public fascination, turning the simple fact of growing tall into a symbol of his enigmatic presence. This curiosity is amplified by the family's strict protection of his privacy. The intentional absence of interviews or public statements creates a vacuum, and the human mind naturally fills it with narratives. Barron's silence, carefully maintained by Melania and the family, paradoxically increases his fame, making him one of the most talked about yet rarely seen members of the Trump dynasty. In a media landscape that thrives on exposure, the boy who avoids it entirely becomes endlessly compelling. One of the most intriguing questions about Barron Trump is whether he will step into the legacy of his family or chart his own path. The Trump name carries immense weight. Donald's political career, business empire, and the global spotlight cast a long shadow over all his children. Some media outlets and fans speculate that Barron might become the next generation of the dynasty, poised to enter politics, expand business ventures, or uphold the family brand in some form. Every rare glimpse of him fuels these theories as observers try to decipher ambition behind the quiet demeanor. Yet the signs suggest a different story. Barron's reserved nature, cultivated under Melania's protective guidance, indicates a preference for independence and privacy. His interests in technology, sports, and personal projects point to a young man more inclined to explore his own passions than follow predetermined family roles. The contrast with his siblings, who are deeply embedded in public life, underscores that Barron's journey may be intentionally distinct. Ultimately, Barron embodies a delicate balance between family legacy and personal freedom. The world watches curious whether he will embrace the dynasty or remain in the shadows, living a life defined on his own terms. His choices could redefine what it means to grow up a Trump, showing that even in a family known for exposure, in spectacle, privacy, and self-determination can prevail. Barron Trump has now entered a new chapter of life as a student at New York University, stepping into the bustling, dynamic environment of one of America's most prestigious institutions. NYU offers a vast array of opportunities, business, technology, media, and countless other fields that could shape his future. But for Barron, this world remains largely private. Unlike many of his peers, there are no paparazzi snapshots, no public social media accounts, and almost no official photographs capturing daily life. His existence in the city is discreet, carefully shielded from the relentless curiosity of the media and public. Melania continues to play a central role in maintaining this privacy. Even as Barron navigates college life and the potential independence it brings, she ensures that boundaries remain firm, protecting him from exposure while allowing him to explore his interests and develop skills on his own terms. This careful balance between freedom and protection has allowed Barron to experience the university years with a sense of normalcy unusual for a Trump, cultivating personal growth without the interference of public scrutiny. In this environment, Barron remains the quiet observer, learning, experimenting, and engaging with the world around him, but always on his own terms. The aura of mystery persists, amplified by every moment of absence, leaving the public to wonder what ambitions, talents, and paths he may ultimately choose. Though Barron Trump lives a life of extraordinary privacy, there is no doubt that it is also a life of luxury. From a young age, he has been surrounded by high-end fashion, exclusive accessories, and state-of-the-art technology, creating a world that is both privileged and curated. His environment reflects the family's wealth and status. Mar-a-Lago in Florida and Trump Tower in Manhattan serve not only as homes, but as carefully controlled sanctuaries where Barron can live comfortably and safely. Despite the opulence, Barron's life is far from public spectacle. There are no social media posts flaunting his possessions, no tabloids capturing extravagant moments, and no public events showcasing wealth. Every detail of his lifestyle is carefully managed, maintaining discretion while still offering all the advantages of a privileged upbringing. This careful balance between abundance and privacy has allowed Barron to enjoy the benefits of his family's fortune without succumbing to the pitfalls of exposure or public scrutiny. In essence, his life represents a rare form of elite childhood, surrounded by privilege yet shielded from the relentless attention and commentary that typically accompany wealth and fame. Barron's luxurious world exists quietly behind closed doors, a space where normalcy, safety, and comfort coexist with affluence, reinforcing the mystery that defines him in the public imagination. Barron Trump occupies a unique place in the public imagination. He is the most mysterious member of one of America's most famous families. Unlike his siblings, who thrive in the spotlight, Barron has been carefully shielded from media exposure, creating a vacuum that the public instinctively tries to fill. Every rare appearance, whether beside Melania at Mar-a-Lago, walking through Trump Tower, or attending an official event, becomes a focal point for speculation, curiosity, and commentary. This aura of secrecy has fueled countless memes, social media debates, and even conspiracy theories. People speculate endlessly about his personality, interests, and potential future, often imagining narratives that have little or no basis in reality. The very absence of information has amplified the allure, turning Barron into a symbol of intrigue and mystique. In a media age obsessed with transparency, exposure, and celebrity, his ability to remain virtually invisible makes him a paradoxical icon. The quieter he is, the more the world wants to know. Barron's public fascination illustrates a broader truth about modern celebrity. Sometimes absence is more compelling than presence. He embodies the human desire to uncover the unknown, to create stories from shadows, and to marvel at the unseen. In this way, Barron Trump has achieved a kind of fame entirely different from his family, one defined not by appearances, statements, or accomplishments, but by mystery itself. In the end, Barron Trump's life after the White House has been defined not by headlines, speeches, or public appearances, but by silence and careful discretion. Shielded and guided by Melania, he has grown up in an environment where privacy is a priority, allowing him to experience childhood and adolescence without the pressures that have shaped his siblings' lives. His every step from school choices to social interactions is protected, creating a rare space where a young man of extraordinary privilege can develop away from public scrutiny. The world may continue to speculate, circulate rumors, and construct images of the boy behind the headlines, yet Barron himself is quietly authoring his own story. His narrative is told not in interviews or social media posts, but through the deliberate absence that fuels curiosity and fascination. This life of silence carries its own weight, shaping a personality marked by independence, thoughtfulness, and discretion. Ultimately, Barron embodies a paradox in the age of exposure. The quieter he remains, the more captivating he becomes. The lingering question remains open: will he one day step into the spotlight as a public figure, embracing the legacy of his family, or will he continue to move through life on his own terms, preserving the mystery that has defined him? For now, the world watches fascinated as Barron Trump quietly writes a life of his own choosing.